All right, thank you, guys. West Virginia takes on Texas, and that's going to be a 12 p.m. Eastern kickoff this Saturday. The Longhorns are -6 with the total at 58. We're 2-0 in our last two extra daily picks on patreon.com/Brock Page. And access to the extra daily pick costs just $2.99. We also won 2 out of our last 3 board member tier package plays on that site as well. We currently have over 625 members signed up and active on that page. And if you want to join those folks and get in on the action, link for that site is in the description section below. And once again, that's patreon.com/Brock Page. And when it comes to this West Virginia-Texas game, the West Virginia Mountaineers are plus 210 for some money line cash. Let me grab my remote here. I think we might have a couple other Big 12 games up here. We weren't so lucky with the FCC. We only had one SEC game on our big screen back there. So hopefully we have better luck. But anyway, the West Virginia Mountaineers are plus 210 for some money line cash. West Virginia's 0-2 straight up on the road this season, 0-2 against the spread in those contests. They also failed to cover the point spread in 3 out of their last 5 contests. 26 points a game on average they gave up in those failures to cover. The Mountaineers have failed to cover the number in 14 out of their last 20 when catching the point. So if you're into historical trends, they haven't been great as the underdog over the past couple of years. They are taking on a Texas squad who's on a 2-game winning streak themselves. Nice 41-34 victory over a very good Oklahoma State team last week. The very same Oklahoma State team that smoked West Virginia by 14 points in their second game of the 2020 campaign. Now, Texas also took care of Baylor by double digits in their contest before that. The Longhorns covered the number in their last 2 straight, and they find themselves winners of 2 out of their last 3 home games. Sam Ehlinger has been awesome this year. He's throwing for 275 a game, 1,650 yards total for the season thus far, passing. He's also thrown for 20 touchdown passes in those 6 contests as well. Josh Moore has 22 catches for 343 and 7 scores. Brennan Eagles also has 15 grabs for 243 and 4 touchdowns himself. And when it comes to this Texas rushing attack, they're getting $165 a game on the ground, and they scored 10 rushing touchdowns on the year. Quarterback Sam Ehlinger is responsible for 70% of that, rushing for 284 yards on the season and 7 scores on the ground. Ehlinger's throwing for, he's scoring 4.5 touchdowns per contest on average, both throwing and or passing. Now the Longhorns are scoring a staggering 44 points a game. And when it comes to the total on this one, 5 out of the Longhorns, the last 6 ball games, got over the posted total. 2 of them won to the over at home. Meanwhile, the Mountaineers saw their last 3 straight get over the line themselves. Give me the Texas Longhorns -6 and the over 58 in that ball game. Before we go ahead and move on, just want to take another quick timeout and welcome you to the video. Got some lines and personal leans out for college football. It's actually week 10 in the NCAA. And of course, we're breaking down the Big 12 in this edition of our free content here on YouTube. Now, before we dive into some more free content right here on YouTube, just got to quickly remind you once again that we are currently 2-0 in our last 2 extra daily picks on patreon.com/Brock Page. And access to that content costs just $2.99. We also won 2 out of our last 3 board member tier package plays on that site as well. We currently have over 625 members signed up and active on that site. And if you want to join them and get in on the action, link for that site is in the description section below. And once again, that's patreon.com/Brock Page. Now, moving on, we landed on the dot. We got it right there. Our next game we're going to be covering here is Kansas scoring off against Oklahoma. This could potentially be a murder scene, an absolute massacre. 3:30 p.m. Eastern start time. The Sooners are the 38-point favorite, total 65.5. The Sooners are on a 3-game winning streak. Texas Tech, TCU, and the Texas Longhorns are the 3 teams they beat during that stretch. They're actually coming fresh off a 34-point victory over Texas Tech, where they put up 62 points on the Red Raider defense. And as a matter of fact, this Oklahoma offense averaged 49 points a game in their last 3. and they're averaging 44 points a game for the entire 2020 season. They've also successfully covered the number in their last 3 straight as well. The Sooners throw for 352 yards a game, and the average 3 passing TDs per contest as well. These guys have really been able to air it out very good through the air. And of course, that's thanks to quarterback Spencer Rattler, who's completing 70% of his passes for over 1,800 yards and 17 touchdown passes. This guy's been really good. His favorite target's been Marvin Mims, who has 23 catches for 388 yards and 6 touchdowns. Mims is also averaging 17 yards per reception. Now, wideout Theo Weiss also has caught 23 balls for 337 on the season as well. Meanwhile, the Sooner running attack is gaining 159 yards a game on the ground. TJ Pledger has gained over 350 yards on the season, and he scored 4 times. Oklahoma's gone 2-1 straight up at home this season, 2-1 against the spread in those contests. They are taking on a pitiful Kansas team who's 0-6 straight up on the year, 0-6 against the spread in those contests. The Jayhawks are coming off a 30-point loss to Iowa State, where they actually gave up 52 points to the Cyclones. Kansas is actually giving up 46 points a game, with their best performance coming against Coastal Carolina, where they only gave up 38 to the Chanticleers. So very bad defense. This is like an all-time worst college football team, the rate they're going. Now the Jayhawks gain just 152 yards a game through the air, and they have only 3 passing TDs through 6 contests. The O-line has also given up 29 sacks. Meanwhile, their team's leading rusher is rushing for just 54 yards per contest. This terrible Jayhawk defense has gotten the quarterback only 6 times thus far in the season, and they forced only 4 turnovers. Now, total-wise, the Jayhawks are 3-0 to the over when they travel. No surprise there. They gave up so many points. They're also 6-0 to the over for the entire year. A perfect 6-0 to the overs. Meanwhile, the Sooners on the other side saw 4 out of their last 5 get over the line themselves. Give me the Oklahoma Sooners minus 38 in the over 65.5 in that contest. Next matchup, Texas Tech squaring off against TCU. 3:30 p.m. Eastern kickoff at Texas Christian. The Horned Frogs are the 9.5-point favorite at home, total 61 and a hook. The Texas Tech Red Raiders are plus 260 for an outright win. They've also lost 4 out of their last 5 ball games, including a 62-28 beatdown to the hands of the Oklahoma Sooners. And this Raider defense is allowing 42 points a game and has just 5 takeaways on the year. Tech's winless in 2 tries on the road, and they failed to cover the number in both of those games. They're taking on a TCU squad who's coming fresh off a double-digit victory over Baylor. Now, the Horned Frogs have successfully covered the number in 3 out of their last 5, and they scored 33 points or more in all 3 of those contests. All 3 of those covers, TCU, they're averaging 140 yards a game on the ground, and they've rushed it into the end zone 8 times. 8 rushing TDs for this squad here. Now, total-wise, TCU's 3-2 to the over thus far in the season. Meanwhile, Texas Tech saw their last 2 straight get over the line themselves. Even the TCU Horned Frogs minus 9.5 in the over, 61 and a hook in that ball game. Next matchup, it is going to be Oklahoma State, Kansas State, and that's going to be a 4 p.m. Eastern start time. The Oklahoma State Cowboys are minus 12.5 with a total at 49 flat. OK State suffered their first loss of the season this past week to Texas, and that was an overtime thriller where they just fell short. Should have won that game. Having said that, though, this Cowboys team has still covered the number in 3 out of their last 4, and they find themselves 4 months straight up on the season. They've actually held their opponents to 12 points a game in their 4 victories, so this is still a very good Oklahoma State ball club. Now, this Cowboy defense has gotten to the quarterback 20 times already, and they average 4 sacks per contest. Linebacker Calvin Bundage leads this defense with 4 sacks. Trace Ford has 3. And, of course, safety Trey Sterling actually leads this Cowboy defense with 37 total tackles and 2 PBUs. Meanwhile, offensively, They're rushing for 166 yards a game on the ground, thanks mostly in part to Chuba Hubbard. He's carried it 119 times for 550 yards and 5 scores. Hubbard's averaging nearly 5 yards a carry. They're taking on a Kansas State team who just got beat down by West Virginia in a 27-point loss. They got absolutely shellacked. And, of course, under true freshman quarterback Will Howard, this K-State squad has scored 21 points or less in 2 out of their last 3. Now, Howard's completing just 55% of his passes and has thrown 4 interceptions already through just less than a handful of games. Now, total-wise, when it comes to the number in this one, 2 out of the Wildcats' last 4 stayed under the posted number. Meanwhile, 3 out of Oklahoma State's 5 contests on the season stayed under the line themselves. So with all that said and done, I'm going to go ahead and lean toward the Oklahoma State Cowboys minus 12.5 and the under 49 in that ball game. And with that, we're going to dive into our next and final matchup for the show. It is going to be Baylor, Iowa State, 7 p.m. Eastern start time. The Cyclones are the 14-point favorite at home. Total's 51.5. You know, if you look back over the past probably decade, the fact that Iowa State is a 14-point favorite in a game, awesome. It's great. But anyway, the Baylor Bears are plus 450 for some money line cash. Now, Baylor's on a 3-game losing streak, 0-3 against the number during that stretch. They're also 0-2 straight up on the road, 0-2 against the number in those road contests. They're rushing for less than 93 yards per game, and they scored only 20 points a game on average in their last 3. Now, they're taking on an Iowa State ball club who hung up 52 on Kansas this past Saturday. They've also won 4 out of their last 5 ball games and scored 39 points a game on average in those victories. The Cyclones are rushing for over 200 yards a game, and they have arguably the best running back in college football. Of course, I'm talking about Breece Hall, who has touched it 134 times on the ground for 901 yards and 11 touchdowns. He's been outstanding. Hall's averaging nearly 7 yards a carry. The Cyclone offense has scored 17 times a game, 17 times on the ground, and they average over 4 touchdowns per contest as an offensive unit. Now, this Iowa State defense has also held their opponents to just 20 points a game in their last 3 contests, and they get to the quarterback at least 3 times a game on average. Edge rusher Will McDonald has 5.5 sacks on the season, along with 16 total tackles. Defensive end Jaquan Bailey also has 5 sacks himself, along with 27 tackles and a fumble recovery. Iowa State's gone 13-3 straight up in their last 16 games at home. They've been very good on their home field over the past couple of years. Now, total-wise, 3 out of the Cyclones' last 5 ball games got over the posted number. Meanwhile, 2 out of Baylor's last 4 got over the line themselves. Give me the Iowa State Cyclones minus 14 and the over 51.5 in that contest. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. Once again, don't forget to check me out on Patreon. If you guys decide to get a package here today, just keep in mind, we'll bill you the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that. But most importantly, guys, got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. Really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. And with that said, happy Monday to you. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at patreon.com/BrockPage.